Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming out this evening. I want to go ahead and get started. I recognize people will still be coming in and out, depending on traffic and other reasons why it takes them a few moments to get here behind all of us. My name is Jason Goodrick. I'm the Executive Director of the Cleveland Police Commission. I want to thank you all again for taking the time to share this moment with each other and with the volunteer commissioners who are seated at this table, who've served on your behalf, on the community's behalf, for the past 4 years. I'm not going to speak long, and we have a few other speakers set behind me. I'm not going to go through or entertain you with an oral rendition of the history of the Cleveland Police, or try to orally talk about the 105-page consent decree that brought us all together here today. While those things are very important, they're not the main reason we're here this evening. The main reason being the commissioners gathered behind you. I'm also not going to go into extreme detail about the hundreds of recommendations they've made in over 25 reports, or the 150 plus meetings they've had over the last 4 years. Many of which are detailed in this document that we have put out on the table. So this is the Commission's 2019 annual report, and it's also a 4-year comprehensive review of the Commission's work and recommendations since its inception in 2015. We do have hard copies available in the interest of saving resources. We'd prefer it if you are a person who's able, technology-wise, to download it from our website and read through it when you have some time. There's 3 copies at each table to share, and if you would like to take one home with you because you're a hard copy type of person, if you don't have enough at the table, we have others available out there. Just see one of the staff members, they'll help you get that. I want to call your attention back to one specific word I mentioned, and that word is volunteer. Since I started in this position, many people have made the assumption that the members of this police commission are paid. They are not. They've all made a choice to sacrifice from their careers, their families, and their own pursuits to work on what may possibly be remembered as one of the greatest social issues of the 21st century, and that's police reform. There's a sense of empowerment and fulfillment found in volunteerism. The act itself comes in many forms. It can be volunteering to help a friend or a family member through a difficult time, volunteering at a church event, volunteering overseas to help individuals have a better life, or in this instance, volunteering to participate in the betterment of your own republic. John Adams is attributed with saying, "To be good and to do good is all we have to do." In the time of the founding of our republic, civic virtue and participating in the betterment of your nation and state was considered one of the highest callings a human being can answer. The idea of a betterment of humankind's existence through helping others is even quite older than that. It's found in the doctrines of Eastern and Western religion and philosophy. Sages across the centuries have debated the role of duty via civic engagement and civic education and its role in both happiness and accomplishment in one's life. Although these moral callings are deeply personal for everyone, the individuals that have served in this first 4-year term have one thing in common. They all felt the same sense of duty to act. And through their action, they're making a difference in Cleveland's lives, people in Cleveland's lives. It's really a testament that the fact that you're all here to show up and support them and celebrate their successes. I can say with certainty that the words you've shared with them, your stories and experiences, have been part of the deliberations of every decision they have made. So I'm really hopeful that this evening, during the community comment period as we progress there, we take a moment to share how you feel about this commission and their work, what you've taken away from their work, and how you hope the commission continues in the future. Again, we'll have representatives here from the DOJ and the monitoring team. We even have, Your Honor, Judge Solomon Oliver Jr. here this evening to be our keynote speaker. But we didn't come here this evening to answer questions or talk in detail about the consent decree. We're really here to talk about the commission. So keep that in mind as we move to community comment period. So without further ado, as many of you know, in July of 2019, the city and the DOJ announced the appointment of a new head monitor for the settlement agreement. So it's my pleasure to introduce Hassan Aden.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see a fairly full room with people still coming in to honor the Community Police Commission. I want to personally thank them. I've been working on this project for a little over 3 years and just a couple months as lead monitor. But I've seen the work that they do. I've read the work that they do. And we have accepted and included a lot of their work in our policies, in our procedures, in our plans, and plan on continuing doing so. The community voice in this circumstance, in a circumstance where, in any circumstance, but particularly in a circumstance where you're under a consent decree and there's been issues, is the most critical voice that you can listen to. And here, we have a healthy and willing participant community. So again, thank you all for your work. To imagine that you volunteer for this complex job and often thankless is admirable, actually. So I applaud you. So I have the distinct honor of introducing the Honorable Solomon Oliver, Jr. So Judge Oliver was raised along with his 5 brothers and sisters by his parents in Bessemer, Alabama, where he attended segregated public schools. Judge Oliver was appointed to the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Ohio by President William Clinton in 1994 and served as that court's chief judge from 2010 to 2017. Judge Oliver holds a BA from the College of Worcester, an MA in political science from Case Western Reserve University, and a JD from NYU School of Law. From 1972 to 1975, Judge Oliver was an assistant professor of political science at the College of Worcester. From 1975 to 76, Judge Oliver was a law clerk for the late Judge William Hasty of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, the first African-American federal judge. Judge Oliver was an assistant U.S. attorney in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Ohio from 1976 to 1982, where he served as chief of the Civil Division and chief of appellate litigation. From 1982 to 1994, he was a professor at Cleveland State University, Cleveland Marshall College of Law, and served as Associate Dean from 1991 to 1994. Judge Oliver has served on the Judicial Conference of the United States, the governing body of the federal judiciary, and on its advisory committee on civil rules and its advisory committee on evidence rules. He was a member of the American Bar Association Council of the Section of Legal Education and Admissions to the Bar, which is responsible for the standards governing the accreditation of law schools from 1996 to 2005, and then he served again from 2011 to 2015, at that point serving a term as chair. He currently serves as section delegate to the American Bar Association House of Delegates for the Section of Legal Education and Admissions to the Bar. This is a long bio and successful. I'm going to keep going. The judge, I should have listened, but he told me to cut it short. I just can't. I can't cut this short. Judge Oliver has written articles and lectured on a wide range of topics at colleges and universities, and continuing legal education seminars and at judicial conferences. An honor. Judge Oliver is the recent recipient of the Kutak Award. This award is given annually by the American Bar Association's Section of Legal Education and Admissions to the Bar, at the American Bar Association annual meeting. It is given to an individual who has made significant contributions to the collaboration of the Legal Academy, the bench, and the bar. He is the recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Award from the College of Worcester, the Distinguished Alumni Award from the New York University Black, Latino, Asian Pacific American Law Alumni Association. Judge Oliver has also been inducted into the Cleveland Marshall College of Law Hall of Fame and the Case Western Reserve University Law School Society of Benchers. He has also been the recipient of the Norman S. Minor Bar Association's Trailblazer Award. He has received honorary Doctor of Laws degree from the University of Akron and from the New England School of Law in Boston. He is a member of the American Law Institute, the American Bar Foundation, and the Board of Trustees of the College of Worcester. Judge Oliver previously served as co-chair of the American Bar Association's Litigation Minority Trial Loyal Committee. He currently serves as a member of the Council of the African Law Initiative. So without further ado, Judge Oliver.
Good evening. I told Hassan, I told him, don't do that. I really did, and I meant it, but I appreciate your kind introduction. It's good to be here with all of you, to the members of the commission, to the chairs of the commission, to the members of the representatives of the city who I see here tonight, and the United States Department of Justice, to the members of the monitoring team, to the citizens of the city of Cleveland who are here because they're interested in the city's well-being, and the citizens who contribute so much to that. I say thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you. I've not come to commission meetings for a reason. I'll explain that to you. As a judge, I think I understand the role, the important role that the commission has played and continues to play in overseeing, helping to make sure with the other partners that the requirements of the consent decree are fulfilled, and that police are following best practices and the community is engaging with the police. I want you to be able to do that work without interference. And so I've decided that I would not come. I would not be a part of that. I would let you have your input directly with the city and Department of Justice and with the monitor. And if there was a time that I needed to make hard decisions, I want to be in a position to make those, but I wanted those to come to me without any kind of bias or orientation, presupposition about how things would work. But when I was invited tonight to be part of this celebration, and I would call it celebration, I immediately decided that this was the right time. This was the right time for me to be here with you. It's not because I'm afraid to share my thoughts or ideas. It's not because I'm afraid to hear yours. I assure you that's not the case. But I wanted to make sure that the process that was provided for in the decree was carried out in the best possible way. So it's good. It's good to be here with you. You're a partner in this enterprise with the city, with the Justice Department, with me, the court, and with the monitors, and seeing that the requirements of this decree are fulfilled. And it's not just a decree, but it's a decree which is meant to accomplish something very important, and that is to ensure that policing that goes on in this community is fair and is unbiased, and at the same time is safe as it can be for the officers and for the community. And so that's important to me. It's important to me that you have played and you continue to play this role as a partner. And I do mean that when I say you've been a partner and you are a partner in this enterprise. The city, of course, has the first responsibility and the primary responsibility. It is their responsibility to make sure that the requirements of the decree are carried out. And it's their responsibility to cooperate with the Department of Justice to see that it happens. But the monitor plays a big role in that process, as you know. And the monitor reports to me. The monitor is my eyes and ears on the ground. And the monitor, Chief Aden and his staff, keep me apprised of developments, of how things are going, at least from their perspective, and give me some sense of how the parties are interacting. And so I appreciate the role, the very important role that they play, that the monitor plays. Not every consent decree provides for this kind of citizen involvement. But I do think that the parties, when they were working out this decree, made a wise choice, a very wise choice, in including the commission as a central part of of the structure that was put into place. What better to have input, valuable input from interested, talented, and caring citizens such as yourselves? What better than that? And I appreciate it. I do appreciate your input, and I want to make sure you understand that. Now, I'm standing here in front of you, and the question is, who is this judge that's overseeing, so to speak, this decree? Who is this judge that serves kind of as the backstop for what's going on? Now, Hassan told you a lot about me, and I'm not going to go through all that. But I would say, I think it's important that you know a little bit about me and who I am and what I'm like. And he told you that I grew up in Bessemer, Alabama. And he said 5 brothers and sisters, with 5 brothers and 4 sisters, so it's 10 of us. That's where I grew up. Now, I don't mind telling my age. It's getting up there. But I was born in 1947. So that gives you some sense that I actually did live in the South during a time when it was thoroughly segregated. It was a time when if a white person had a job, if I had a job I wanted that a white person wanted, there was no way I could get that job. Schools were subpar, resources were not provided to us in the same degree. Sometimes there were no resources at all in terms of parks and swimming pools and those kinds of things. And I lived in a city that was 55% African American, but there were no black police officers, there were no black bus drivers, there were no black city officials. That's the kind of city and environment that I grew up in. So I could have learned lessons of meanness and hate. But because of my parents, because of my other relatives, uncles and aunts, we learned lessons of hope, and we learned lessons of fairness. And we were taught, when the world around us suggested that we were nobody, they were told we were somebody. And that was years and years ago. But we were taught that. And our teachers taught us that. And all of my teachers were African American because, as I said before, it was entirely black school system. And so we came to believe not in what was going on in America, but really kind of the American dream. And I don't mean an idle dream, but the dream that says, like in the Declaration, all persons are created equal, and they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among them is life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We knew that we weren't getting those rights, but we believed in those rights. And so it's been a lifelong quest to make sure that the promise of the Declaration, which really wasn't a promise to African Americans, and which wasn't at the time a promise to women, for example, who were denied the right to vote. But the underlying notion of equality, that's what we're talking about. The concept, the ideal, that's what we believed in, that we were taught to believe in. And so we were taught that no race, that no religion, that no nationality, and no sex has a monopoly on talent, and neither should they have a monopoly on opportunity. And so that is why we were taught to push ahead, that one day things were going to be better, and that we were part of the solution, and we were to fight to ensure that those things happen. And that's what our parents did. And so I come committed, have always been, to ensuring the promise of the Declaration, the real promise, the promise of the Constitution, equal protection and due process. That's my background. That's my orientation. And so, as a judge, I take an oath. And the oath goes something like this, that I will administer justice without respect to persons and do equal right to the poor and the rich, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon me as a United States District Judge under the Constitution and laws of the United States. And then we say, so help me God. Well, every public official takes an oath, something like that. Not exactly the same, whether it's the mayor or whether it's a policeman. Take an oath, something like that. And when we take that oath, we should all mean it. It's an important public post. It's important to our society. And so if a person takes that oath, whether it's the mayor, a policeman, a police person, or the judge, and they don't mean it, they ought to step down. Because that is what, the oath has meaning. It has meaning. And so I take it seriously. I expect others in the public service to take it seriously, and that goes throughout, including police officers who serve us in our community. And many of them, I know, many of them take it seriously. But that is what we expect. It's a starting place, because being a police officer is a hard job. It is a difficult job. It is an important job. But the starting place is to start with an orientation that is fair, that is service-oriented, that understands the importance of the oath. Just like I take the oath, I expect others to take that oath seriously. Now, let me just make a few comments about what we're looking for. We know that we're looking for unbiased officers, and this decree requires training in that area, and that's already starting and being undertaken. And we know that it requires training of all types, and that training, as I understand it, is excellent. Let me say a bit about training. You know, this is not something that we're just putting on police officers as extra responsibility. I think that most officers understand that it is better for them to go into the field understanding how to deal with various situations so that they are not in harm's way and so that they don't put others in harm's way when they should not be. I think they understand that. And this training is aimed at that. It's not anti-police at all. It's aimed at improving things for both the citizen and the police officer. And I certainly hope that all understand that. Now, there's also some talking about community policing. I think that the best police practices clearly recognize that if the officers are working in the community and with the community, that the community will come to trust them as they come to trust the people in the community. It's pretty easy to understand that if a police officer comes into the community and I think the police officer is an enemy, I'm not going to be cooperating to share information about crimes or about anything else in that community. But if I feel that police officer is supportive, that the police officer is serving the community, if I feel like I understand the police officers are there to do that job, I want safety like anybody else. I want people to be law-abiding like anybody else. But it takes that kind of trust between officer and community for police officers to be effective in doing their jobs. And so everywhere I go when I have a chance, I want to make sure I say that this decree is a positive step, that it is a forward-looking step, that it works. Its primary purpose is to make sure that citizens are protected, that police officers, the best we can do it, are safe, and that officers are not viewed as enemies in the community, but they are viewed as they are in many communities, and sometimes in many of our own communities, as friends, as helpers, as protectors. It's important. It's important work. And so the commission has been right in the center of that work. And I've been brought up to date about some of your work. I don't know all of it. But the search and seizure area, for example, is one that I've heard about over and over again, about the contribution that this commission has made in offering suggestions and critiquing proposals and plans. And thank you for doing that. Thank you for all the work that you've done. Let me conclude. I don't know how many minutes you put me down for, but I think I've used most of them. If I haven't, I'll yield them back. Let me just conclude by saying, without the cooperation by citizens and police, it can be dangerous for police and citizens. In my view, a bias-free, well-trained force that has healthy interaction with the community it serves is a necessary condition to our realization of the ideals of the Declaration of the Constitution. But it's not sufficient. To fully realize that promise, I mean across our society, we must all be dedicated throughout society to the principles that undergird those documents, recognizing full well that many in our society have not received that promise. So let's do that. Let's work not just in regard to making the police work and the interactions between police and the community the best that it can be, but let's commit ourselves across society to the ideals of the Declaration and the Constitution. And we know of slavery, and we know of its aftermath, and we know of problems that we deal with today, and we're not putting our heads in the sand. I don't want to be accused of that because that's not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm suggesting. There are problems to be tackled. But if we are all committed to those principles, I think we can make this a better world, a better city, and provide opportunities for all, regardless of their race, their religion, their nationality, their orientation. So again, congratulations to all who served to date on the commission and are leaving or have left the commission. Welcome to those who will be coming on, although I think they haven't been chosen. And may the ongoing work of the commission be both enjoyable and fruitful. That's directed to the director and those who will continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know the community was very grateful to hear from you. It's been something that has been talked about for a period of time to get to know the person who wears the robes and presides over this huge undertaking. So thank you very much. And thank you also, Monitor Aden, for coming out and that wonderful introduction that you gave. So next, I'd like to call up our very own Councilman Matt Zone. As you know, Councilman is Ward 15, but he's also the chair of the Council's Safety Committee. If you remember, in 2014, Councilman Zone and his peers did a listening tour before the consent decree was yet finished, and went out and took the time to try to get out to every ward and hear the concerns of the citizens of Cleveland before there was a commission established. So we're happy to have him come here as a representative of both council and the safety committee, who really watches closely over the Cleveland Division of Police, and join us for sharing the perspective of council and also presentation of awards. And just a quick logistical note: when we get to the awards, we'll be calling you in alphabetical order. Come down, and then the police associations will be the finale to that.
Good evening. Judge Oliver, your words were very moving. Thank you for gracing our presence by you being here. The way government works well is when all three branches of government are working together to move our city forward, to make it a more open and inclusive community. So having you here really validates the work that I know Mayor Jackson and his administration is trying to accomplish, as well as my colleagues on City Council. I'd like to acknowledge a few of my colleagues in public service are here. I'd like to recognize our Council President, Kevin Kelly. Kevin, thanks for joining us. Our Council colleague, Joe Jones, thank you for joining us. A couple other my colleagues at the city, Joe Jones Fan Club. I'd like to recognize our Chief of Staff to Mayor Jackson, Sharon Dumas. Sharon, thank you for being here. Our monitoring implementer, Judge Greg White. Judge, thank you for being here as well. Our law director, who's been very instrumental, and Gary Singletary from our law department. If both of you could stand and be recognized, thank you. Our representatives from the police department are interspersed throughout the room, as well as our own chief of police, Kelvin Williams. Chief Williams, thank you for being here. And who's the little guy with you, Chief? Who's that little guy? Your nephew. Thanks for joining us as well. To the community stakeholders, thank you for being here. Your input has really been important in this process. To the commission members, gosh, you have put in hundreds and hundreds of pro bono hours. We know how hard each of you work. In a little bit, I'm going to talk a little bit about each and every one of you, what you do. So we're all grateful for your contribution to your effort in complying with our consent decree. To our colleagues from the Department of Justice and U.S. Attorney's Office, thank you for being here. Hassan, you and your team, the monitoring team, thank you for your involvement as well. You know, December 4th, 2014 was kind of a surreal day for me. I was in D.C. on December 3rd and received a phone call from actually the mayor, who said that Eric Holder was coming into town and there was going to be a little meeting with some city representatives, and he asked me to join. I feel that there's been a real partnership at City Hall, that the council has really been allowed to give our input in this process moving forward. I remember going to the U.S. Attorney's Office, sitting in that very hot room for a long time, but when that statement was put out, agreeing to kind of findings of what we needed to do and how we needed to improve upon that, was really the starting point of working towards implementing that consent decree. And in September, I think it was September of 2015, when the commission was formally constituted, I've always had an open door policy in the Public Safety Committee of City Hall for the monitoring team to meet with me, to come and testify in front of our committee, and we've had them come on an annual basis and just give us their perspective on how it's going. So Judge Oliver, I want you to know all three branches of government, we're all working real nice together, but we still have a lot of work to do, and tonight is not the end of a race. We're a little past the finish line, and there's still a lot more work that needs to happen. But tonight, really, as Jason said, it's about celebrating the commission members. These individuals have put in hundreds and hundreds of hours, have been through long, difficult meetings. Judge Oliver, I've gone a few of these meetings, and I see another one of my council colleagues, Councilwoman Phyllis Cleveland, our majority leader. Councilwoman, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Council Lady. They have put in hundreds of hours. I went to one meeting, I think it was nearly a 4-hour meeting, and that was just one of dozens and dozens of meetings. So your work is really important. Policy is being implemented. Your suggestions do matter. And, you know, the judge is right. The training has never been better. I remember when I first came onto City Council, our police officers were getting roughly around 21 weeks of training. Now they're getting nearly 29 weeks of training. Their culture competency is better than it's ever been. They really understand how that critical training is so important. I think the way that we've been able to restructure our recruiting process to make sure that we get officers who want to be police officers in the city of Cleveland. Not everyone's cut out for this work. And as the judge said, in any profession, you pick it, right? Lawyers, doctors, elected leaders, there's always a percentage that doesn't do it. Judges, there's always a percentage that could potentially do their job a little bit better. And so I think with cities being more intentional now on who we're recruiting, how we're training, because we want to and we aspire to be the best policing agency in the country. We have a lot more work to do. This is not about patting ourselves on the back of what has been done, because in the past, there have been things that have happened that hasn't been the way we'd like to see it. But I want everyone to understand that there's earnest intention by the city, and we're making significant progress in that regard. And to that end, this Friday, we will be graduating another police academy. You know, in the last 4 years, we've brought on hundreds of new officers who have gone through more training than their peers. And we're getting a police department that understands the uniqueness of our city, the people who live in our city, the challenges that face our city. So, Chief, I'm thankful that we're bringing on another recruiting class. I know you're thankful. And that ceremony is going to be this Friday at 11 a.m. if anyone wants to come to the grand chambers of Cleveland City Hall. I really want to get to why I'm here, and that's to really acknowledge, recognize, and just share a little anecdote or two about each of these amazing individuals who give so unselfishly of their time to our city. So Jason, will you start with the first one?
Sure.
I have...
Anthony, and I'll be accepting on his behalf.
Okay. I have accommodations here on behalf of Cleveland City Council and Mayor Frank Jackson, so we're going to give packages to everyone. This first individual couldn't make it here today, but Anthony Body has given 4 years of service to this commission. He was appointed on September 8th and brought with him the experience of an accomplished community organizer in the Glenville neighborhood and a social justice advocate for youth and men of color citywide. Mr. Body led many of the Commission's community engagement efforts and the internal organizational efforts, which greatly contributed to the successful recommendations made by the Commission of the Cleveland Department. I notice in the consent decree says CDP, and as council people, we always say CPD. So I get kind of, it's the alphabet soup of acronyms, but the Cleveland Police Department and Cleveland City Council. So will everyone give an appreciation for Anthony Body's contribution? The next individual has not been on the commission very long, just a little over a half a year. Mr. Christopher Brown was appointed to the commission on March 15th, 2019. And I know this about Christopher. He is passionate about our community. He brings with him the experience of an accomplished community service provider in the area of criminal justice and neighborhood safety. I know this, and this was just by mere coincidence. He does organizing and safety outreach in a part of the ward that I represent, and this guy is outstanding. Mr. Brown has participated in the Commission's community engagement efforts and community and problem-oriented policing committee, which has resulted in the recommendations which were made by the Commission to the Cleveland Department of Police and Cleveland City Council. Christopher, thank you for all you do, man. Hold on. Give it up for Christopher. Our next person we want to recognize has been a tremendous asset to the commission. Dr. Kathleen Clegg was appointed to the commission on September 8th, 2015, and brought with her the experiences of a practicing psychology related to mental health issues and addiction, as well as teaching medical students and other practitioners. Dr. Clegg represented the commission as a liaison to the Mental Health Response Advisory Committee, which connected the police to the community and the mental health providers. The committee's work resulted in recommendations and training that improve relationship between the police and people in crisis, the homeless and persons struggling with addiction. I can tell you a lot of our crisis intervention, our CIT training, she has given tremendous amount of work in that space. We are also thankful for your work. Thank you. The Energizer Bunny Rabbit, Dr. Mario Clopton Zeimler. He was appointed to the commission on September 8th, 2015, and brought with him the experiences of a teaching career, a community organizer, a musician, an LGBTQ advocate, and just somebody who truly cares about our community. Mr. Clopton's.
You had it right.
He's never been shy. That's what I love about this guy. Mario was elected by his peers to serve as an inaugural co-chair of the commission. He led efforts to develop the commission's bylaws, budget, and hire staff. Mr. Clopton Zimler, I'm sorry about that, has championed the conversations of civilian oversight in Cleveland and contributed to several key reports on the use of force, officer discipline, and community policing that were delivered to Cleveland Department of Police and the Cleveland City Council. Mario, thanks for your contribution.
So we'll be accepting on behalf of Dr.
Okay.
Connor. She's not here.
Another individual who's given so much time and service to our community, Reverend Dr. Yvonne Connor, couldn't join us here, so staff is going to accept it on behalf of her. But she was appointed again to the commission on September 8, 2015, and brought with her her experience of a lifelong career of service to God and the community through professional faith-based affiliation, corporate and nonprofit work. Reverend Dr. Connor was elected by her peers to serve 2 terms as co-chair of the commission. She led efforts to develop best practices within the commission and hire its first staff. Reverend Dr. Connor has championed the conversation of civilian oversight in Cleveland and produced several reports on the community engagement and problem-orienting policing that were delivered to the Division of Police and to Cleveland City Council. She also had my number on speed dial and would often call me. She's just an amazing woman, and we are also thankful for her contributions to the commission. Okay. The next individual has been serving our community for decades. We are fortunate to have somebody of his caliber on our commission. I'd like to ask the Dean of the Law School to come on up. Mr. Lee Fisher was appointed to the commission on September 8th, 2015, and brought with him the experiences of a distinguished career in public service, nonprofit work, and academia, where he has championed public safety issues and concerns of minorities. Mr. Fisher contributed to the establishing the Commission's internal structure, organization, and the hiring of the staff. He also led the Commission's community engagement efforts around the topic of bias-free policing and assembled a group of local experts to make recommendations on the city's first bias-free policing policy to the Police Department and to Cleveland City Council. I want to thank you, Lee. I know he has come before City Council several times. He presented the findings on bias-free policing, and I know there's a GPO that has been influenced by the work of what you've done, so I want to thank you on behalf of the City of Cleveland. Thank you. Our next person we want to recognize is Mr. Gordon Friedman, who was appointed to the Commission in November of 2016 and brought with him experiences of practice in law related to civil rights and criminal defense, including serving on the Public Defender Commission. Mr. Friedman led the Commission's community engagement efforts around the topic of search and seizure and assembled a group of local experts to make recommendations related to constitutional policing, gender equity, and police-youth interactions with the police and Cleveland City Council. This guy, we are fortunate to have somebody of his caliber on the Commission. He brings so much knowledge and experience, and so Gordon, we all appreciate you. You should have gave the peace sign. That's such a Gordon move. Do you see? He's like, hey, man, peace.
Richard, no.
Our next person we want to recognize is Mr. Richard Noth, who was appointed to the Commission in December of 2017 and brought with him the experiences of practicing law related to business, government, and regulations and corporate governance. Mr. Noth was elected by his peers to serve as a co-chair of the Commission and led efforts to develop best practices within the Commission. He also championed an effort to ensure that the Commission's policy recommendations are heard by advocating for increased negotiations and meetings with city officials. Additionally, he advocated to increase the quality and the number of police recruits by making recommendations to the Division of Police as well as to Cleveland City Council. Mr. Noth, thank you for your service. I appreciate it. Our next commissioner we're going to recognize is LaToya Logan. She was a big sir. LaToya was appointed to the commission in November 2016 and brought with her the experiences of a seasoned clinician in social work and program and training evaluator and social justice advocate. Ms. LaToya Logan was elected by her peers to serve 2 terms as a co-chair of the commission and led efforts to increase community engagement, improve internal practices, build relationship between commissioners, and improve collaboration between the commission and the city. Ms. Logan championed the conversation of accountability, including truth and reconciliation, recognition of trauma in youth and communities of color, and training of officers and wellness. Too often we forget in this line of work about the wellness of the people who are doing the job, so thank you for being a wonderful advocate. Her advocacy resulted in recommendations that were delivered to the Division of Police and to Cleveland City Council. Thank you for your service.
We're going to move on to the associations.
Gotcha.
Sergeant Richard Jackson also has a colleague with him.
Okay, great. So in addition to the civilians on the commission, it also had 3 representatives from our various police associations. And the associations over the time of the past 4 years have sent multiple representatives to donate their time and to collaborate with civilian appointees on the commission and to make policy recommendations to the Division of Police as well as to Cleveland City Council. I would ask my colleagues in public service, when I call upon you individually representing an organization, if you have anyone else, if you would join us. So would Sergeant Richard Jackson, currently serving and accepting, if there's anyone else from the Black Shields Association, please come and join us. Do the obligatory photo. I know you want it. I'd like to now ask Detective Jeffrey Fomer, currently serving and accepting for the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association. I hear you, Miss Bickerstaff. I hear you. Our last person we're going to recognize, I'd like to ask Lieutenant Gail Maxwell, who's currently retired, but she's not retired. This woman works hard. She's also my constituent who represents the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge Number 8. She has done a tremendous amount of work, has done outreach to my office, and will all of you just give an appreciation for her. Quick photo. Thank you. She just let me know we worship at the same church, too.
Final, here's a roll call of other.
Gotcha, perfect. This recognition would not be complete without doing a roll call of past commission members who have served. So I want to acknowledge former commission member Craig Boyce, who gave 8 months of service to our commission. Commissioner Amanda King, who gave 3 years of service. Commission member Max Rodas, who gave us 5 months of service. Max. Commission member Dylan Sellers, who gave 3 years of service to our commission. And what would a CPC meeting be without us acknowledging and recognizing Dr. Rhonda Williams for her 2 years of service to the commission member? Jason, thank you for giving me the opportunity. To all of you, thank you for doing this incredibly important work, but most importantly to the commission members. This is hard work. I can't say it again. It's hard work, and it's acknowledged by us at the City Hall. I know sometimes you feel like it's a thankless position and that you're getting it from the community, and then sometimes dealing with the bureaucracy can be frustrating. But you serve a very important role. And so on behalf of my colleagues at the City of Cleveland, we thank you for your service and contribution. Thank you.
All right, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the co-chairs and the commissioners to say a few words about their experiences. Following the commission's comments, we will have time for public comments, and we'll get to that right after we hear from our commissioners.
I'll start off. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My statement is very, very brief. I really just want to give an immeasurable amount of praise and thanks to my fellow commissioners, the civilians who will be leaving. The work they put in over the last 4 years, was really hard. I know I came in on the back end of it, but just seeing the work from this point of it, it's like, my God, they had to build out this entire process. And they end up doing it. There were some bumps in the road here and there, and they went through all of that and to where we are here today. And like the judge said, I do not believe this is the end of the road. This is merely just a handing over of the batons, and we're going to keep it rolling. So with that, I'll pass it on to my co-chair.
Good evening. So first, I'd like to thank each of you for coming out. As you all know, 4 years is a long time to be committed to any one thing. Most of us can't stay committed to our workout regimen. So I appreciate your attendance at our meetings, but I'd like to highlight some of the community members who have really given more than we could have expected, anticipated, and I think sometimes we haven't always had the opportunity or occasion to highlight what they've given to us. So, Ms. Brenda Bickerstaff, you know, you have been an immeasurable support. You're never speechless. But appreciate you always making sure that we are mindful and responsive and inclusive of the family's experience. Because as you know, when you work on policies and you're trying to figure out the semantics and wording and funding of things, you sometimes can lose the empathy. So I appreciate you always ensuring that we're including that. To Dave Lima from Surge, I want to thank you for your tireless effort and always being available and collaborating and being really a sounding board of reasoning for sometimes a very heated discussion topic. So I appreciate you. Ms. Pat Needham, I want to thank you for always showing up and offering your services to whatever it is that we might need. And most people don't know, but you travel far to get to us. I see you walking sometimes when I'm on my way to work, and so I know what your journey looks like, and I know what it takes for you to make this type of commitment month after month, year after year, and I want to thank you for that. There are family members in here. Ms. Rice, I want to thank you. I know. I know that this process has been difficult because it isn't always focused on what you think we should, but I appreciate you continuing to give your input and investing your time and energy to keep us on course so that we are fulfilling the mandates of police reform for the city of Cleveland. There are many others in this room, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I think, us sitting up here, we're individual people who are trying to work towards something much greater than we could be individually. It's about the collective and the collective work of each of us in this room, and that includes the officers. It cannot be, I am pro-police and not community. It must be, I am pro-community because the community includes the police. So we need to change the language so that we can empower the community towards collaboration. That is the only way we will get to transformative police reform, and that is the only way we can improve relations. So thank you again for coming out. I appreciate you, and we will continue. Have a good night.
Now, if any of the individual commissioners would like to say a word? Yes, Sterling.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to say thanks to the community and all of you that come to these meetings regularly, both the regular meetings and all the smaller meetings that we held throughout the city of Cleveland over the last several years. I myself have grown a lot through that process, as I think many people here. As we get closer to the community and the community needs, there's a better understanding of why this is so important to the community. And little did I know when I was sworn in by the mayor. Is it? Okay, I'm sorry. Usually the people can hear me. Little did I know when I was sworn in by Mayor Jackson that one day I would be sitting in a small rec center, and I can't even remember where this occurred, but with the head of Black Lives Matter on one side and a homeless man on the other, and listening to their stories and why this process is so important to them. And that's the driver of all this, and we can never forget that. In all these there's been a lot of disagreements, as we all know, but we can never lose sight of the fact that this entire process is dedicated to the community needs and what must move us all together forward, as my colleagues have suggested. I also want to thank the officers. First off, the officers on our commission, Richard, Jeff, and Gail. When I came on board, I was not so certain that having representatives of the police on the commission itself was a great idea, because it's not true in all cases. But in this case, it works very well. And while there's been a great deal of back and forth, it's always been professional and respectful. And you, all of you, carry out your daily activities as we would hope throughout the community, and know you do, and I appreciate that. I'd also like to thank a couple of members of the police force generally. I won't mention names, they know who they are, but several of them dedicated literally their lives to putting this together and making this work. And you know who you are sitting at that table. And we appreciate all the workmanship and penmanship that has gone into all these policies. And it's not been easy from your standpoint, but it's been equally important, and we do appreciate that. In closing, I'd just like to say there's 3 points that I think we need to keep in mind as we move forward. First, as many of you know, I've always been an advocate for integrating social workers into the force. And I'm pleased to say that the city has recognized, and actually did a couple years ago, before I was on the commission, that they will pilot that type of program. There's a lot of work to be done on that front, but I'm just pleased that the door is open. And I think the community's got to keep pushing that just a little bit. We've also suggested through CPOP and other programs that the city recognize some type of abatement program or tax program for recruits. As we all know, and as this process has informed us all, for police officers and first responders to live in the community directly impacts, one, the safety of that community, and the work, the community effort of the citizens and the police. And I think when we've got these new recruits coming in, candidly, they don't have the money necessarily to buy a new house, and maybe they'd like to live in the city. So I know the city is working on the abatement programs and analyzing tax abatement programs generally. We made a specific proposal on that front, and I think City Council needs to take that issue up and move forward with that. On that same front, I'm sorry. On that same front, a big concern of mine is that we've done a lot of work with success from every group here. And a lot of money has been spent developing cameras, working with technology, new recruits, and enhancing the assets that the police have to do their work, which is very necessary. And moving forward, we have to make sure that there's funds available and earmarked through council, so those funds are available so we can get the next generation of cameras, so we can get the next generation of technology, because literally millions and millions of dollars need to be spent every year. We can do this, but I think if the community puts a little press on that issue. Finally, I'd just say, you know, some have said I necessarily don't underscore the successes that we've enjoyed. There have been a lot of success, and the success has been for the community and the police officers. Today, it is palpable. Today, when I am in my city of Cleveland neighborhood, it's a whole different environment in terms of community relations with the police. We're moving forward, and we need to continue moving that forward. And I would commend the next group of commissioners to keep that ball rolling. Thank you.
I am thankful for having had this opportunity. I'm very thankful to my colleagues on the commission and my colleagues at the Mental Health Response Advisory Committee as well. But I'm primarily thankful for you all in the community who have come out and come to our meetings and shared your stories. Many times painful stories that involved your loved ones or your own experiences. And that has really helped all of us to understand the importance of what we're trying to accomplish here. So thank you so much for bringing yourselves and your stories. You have not only come and shared your stories, you volunteered to join work groups and help create policy and make recommendations and give feedback when it wasn't quite right. And we appreciate you hanging in there and continuing to help us. I am pleased that the crisis intervention team training that has been done is really being looked at as a model in the country, really. And I'm seeing in my workplace, I'm seeing the improvements of the training, and it's really a wonderful thing to see officers implementing some of the things they've learned, taking time and really treating our community members who struggle with mental illness and addiction with respect. And so I want to share and thank you, Chief, for supporting those efforts.
As a resident of the city of Cleveland, I would like to thank my fellow colleagues and the members of the community that have come together to help make this city a better place. Thank you.
I want to echo my colleagues in saying thank you to the community members who have been with us from the beginning, or community members who just came tonight, because this work is ever changing and ever growing. And I've said it time and time again, I'm 32 and I intend on being in this city and raising my children here, and the safety of them and my community members and the police officers that serve that community matters to me. And so if you just started today, great, bring a friend to the next commission meeting. Make sure that you're engaged in this process. Make sure while you have the Department of Justice and the City of Cleveland here right now, including the top brass in the Department of Justice and the Division of Police, let them know that real police accountability is something that we need, and it needs to be institutionalized in our charter, and to make sure that we have a consistent community voice in making quality recommendations for police reform and police policies and practices moving forward. I am at this table because I am a teacher professionally first and foremost, and this is my 10th year teaching. And one of my students today, it was funny that you mentioned Energizer Bunny. They sometimes don't understand where I get it from. I don't know where I get it from sometimes, but I told them they give it to me, and I say too, like, they are worth that energy. They deserve it. And it was a child that was taken away from us much too soon that brought me to this table, that brought me to one of those community meetings to say, I have to figure out what I have to do to make sure that this doesn't happen to one of my middle schoolers that I see every day, to make sure that they come back home to their parents better and smarter than they left in the morning. And so, that's what brought me here. A love of learning, too, as a lifelong learner, brought me to the table of saying, like, I didn't know much about police reform. So for those of you out there who feel like this work is too hard or too tough for you, I just opened up a book. I started with the Constitution, and I kind of went from there. And I figured it out, and I said I wanted to be one of the first chairs of this group, because when you dive into something, just dive in. You never know where it's going to lead. And it was the love of learning and the memory of Tamir that kept me in those hard times when I wanted to quit, to say keep going and finish and get there, so that you can say and look back that you did what you could in your little way. And I want to speak on behalf of all of us. I think I can have that liberty to say, as the chair emeritus, this work is voluntary, and in 4 years I have been engaged, been married, lost both of my maternal great-grandparents. It's a long time. And the family that I've been able to depend on, and the friends I've been able to depend on, the husband that I've been able to depend on, and all of our family and all of our friends that we've been able to come back from these meetings and just pull out whatever hair we do have, or to really talk about why we're inspired by something that someone said during a public comment period, or to reflect on the majesty of coming back from the chambers of Judge Solomon Oliver, who has Brown versus Board of Education on his wall, enshrined there as a teacher, and seeing that and just being inspired, or the constant dialogue we have with community members, or with the DOJ, or with the city. The family that we have that supports us in this work is so important, and I so personally want to say thank you to my husband and to my family and to all the families who have helped us along the way to make sure that we make it to today and beyond. So thank you, and thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Christopher Brown, Commissioner Brown. First, I'd like to say it's been such an honor to work with this group of men and women. I've learned so much in my 7 months as an appointed commissioner. It's just been unbelievable. Next, I'd like to thank the community for all their input, and I work closely with the First District, Councilman Zone, Council 15 offices, and it's really connecting the dots with community-oriented policing. So I'd just like to say thank you, and I am throwing my hat in the basket for the next round, so hopefully I will see you guys again.
I would, at this point, like to give recognition to the search and seizure work group that we were able to bring together, which included Professor Lou Cass from Case Western Reserve University, Jonathan Whitmer-Rich from Cleveland State University Law School, Cullen Sweeney from the Public Defender's Office, and Emma Keeshan from the ACLU, and Mario Zimler-Clayton, Copton, so to speak. And I'm sorry, Mary, I always mess that up.
It's okay, you just call me Mario.
Mario, Richard Jefferson, and Gail Maxwell, who participated in our search and seizure work group, and members of Quality Ohio. And we had a very, very heated and workable discourse with members of the city of Cleveland, led, I thought, very well by Magistrate White, and Greg and I historically have not agreed on much of anything, and probably still don't. But I think that he ran a magnificent meeting where there was a great deal of give and take, and I believe the city listened to our recommendations, and there's no question in my mind that they considered them, and in fact, in some instances, adapted many of our proposals, of which we are greatly appreciative. And I thought that our meetings with you, with the city, is what it should be all about, the honest give and take, disagreement and agreement. Officer Simon, likewise, who is the intellectual head of that whole crew, give recognition to all the work that you guys did, and thank you for your time and listening to us. I would also like to say that the consent decree, to my mind, is a lot of artfully crafted words put together by the DOJ, the city, and members of the community. But what really gives me confidence and faith that the aspirations of the consent decree will be realized is leadership of Judge Solomon Oliver. I'm skeptical of most governmental entities, but he is the one person that I put faith in that this will turn out the right way.
I want to begin by saying some thank yous and then just make a few observations. I want to begin by thanking every person in this room, many of you who have been to multiple meetings over the last 4 years. I recognize many of you on this side of the room who have been at meetings consistently for 4 years. I want to thank the members of the City of Cleveland, the Law Department, the Mayor's Office, Chief Williams and his men and women of his department. I want to thank the members of Cleveland City Council, Councilman Zone, President Kelly, and others. And I want to thank Judge Oliver, of course, for his leadership. I also want to thank my fellow commissioners, with whom I often disagreed, but always respected. And although we didn't always see eye to eye, I never questioned, and I don't think any of us questions, each of our motives. Our motives were pure. And I think it's fair to say that there's no one in this room who understands, in many ways, the reason why we're here today and tonight than Mrs. Rice. I can't even imagine, and none of us can imagine, the kind of pain that she has felt. And regardless of your views on that tragedy, that has been the fire that has kept many of us to the grindstone these last 4 years. This is my fourth decade of working on these kinds of issues. which I guess means I've done it before Mario was born, now that I know how old he is. In the early 1980s, working with a number of people, most particularly Mike White, who was then a state senator, I wrote Ohio's hate crime law. And then as Attorney General, had the opportunity and the privilege to defend it before the highest court in the country. And I can say that if there's anything that I have learned during these years of working on these issues, is that change happens at the speed of trust. Meaning that no matter what policies we enact, no matter how hard we work, it all comes down to that. Whether or not we trust each other, and particularly whether or not the community and law enforcement trust each other. Obviously, we have a long way to go. We need to acknowledge the progress that has been made since the days when I was Attorney General and Rodney King and the riots in LA, and yet acknowledge that we have so far to go despite that progress. Today, September 17th, as many of you know, is Constitution Day. On September 17th, 1787, the United States Constitution was written, which is why I carry this pocket Constitution with me all the time. A reminder that, as the preamble says, it's we the people. And I think that as long as we recognize that all of us, whether we're up here as volunteers or whether we're public servants, we're serving the people, and that we stay grounded in their fears and their concerns and their genuine emotions, regardless of whether or not we may agree with their perception. If that's their perception, then it's reality in the community, and we need to respect it. Final thing I want to say is that I do believe that the single most important thing going forward for the effectiveness of the consent decree comes down primarily to one word, and that is training. We're dealing with data collection and software, but when it comes right down to it, it's humanware. The men and women in the community and the men and women on the police force. And by the way, the training needs to be on the police force and in the community, not one or the other, but both. It's a constant communication. I had a law professor who once said it's better to have a fence at the top of the cliff than to have an ambulance below. But most of our time, as Chief Williams knows, is spent with the ambulance below. We have an opportunity with the consent decree to start building that fence higher and higher and higher. And thanks to the work of the monitor and everyone else in this room, I actually believe we're building a fence. And it needs to get stronger, it needs to get higher. But I, for one, am glad that I had the privilege of being part of this history that we are making. And it's not just Cleveland history, it's American history. Because I'm hoping that someday people will say the consent decree in Cleveland, despite its bumps along the way, proved to be the best consent decree and the best implementation of a consent decree anywhere in the country. We're not there yet, but I'm hoping history will say that.
From the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association, thank you, everybody, for your insight, all your insight and your dedication. I wish I would have been here from the beginning because not only do I see fellow commissioners, but I know I made all new friends here, and I'm proud to call each one of you friends, and I hope we always stay in touch, and just thank you again for your dedication.
I'm sorry, one more thank you, because I remember the days I personally copied thousands of agendas myself, and the day that I finally got the privilege to say my commission staff was a beautiful day for me personally. Our staff has worked tirelessly to make sure that the work of this consent decree by way of the commission is done in a professional way, and I just say, I appreciate you. I'm sure we all do. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you very much. You get the, opening up community comment period, I'd first like to allow any of the city officials to speak. Particularly, Your Honor, I think you might want to stay for one moment. I believe one of the councilmen would like to say a few words to you.
To Judge Solomon Avler, to Judge White, to the President of City Council, Kevin Kelly, to my council colleagues, Matt Zone and Phyllis Cleveland, to the distinguished commissioners for their commitment and dedication to our community, to Reverend Stevenson, to Sharon Dumas, the Finance Director, and to all of you who are assembled here, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to take this opportunity to applaud Judge Solomon for his commitment and his dedication to our community, and for being engaged in justice and having value systems, and talking a little bit about the South. And you know, I got an opportunity to know a lot more about it when I married my wife, and she told me about the town she came from, Opelika, Alabama. And I've been down there quite a bit, but I'm honored to have this opportunity to say thank you for your commitment and your dedication to our community and to the citizens of the city of Cleveland. And I would like to just give you this on behalf of our city. Thank you for your opportunity.
Is there anyone else from the city who would like to say any words before Chief Williams?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just real quick wanted to thank the commission for their work. I know it's not easy. I know we don't always agree, but I know in the end we all have the same goal. My goal is to make our division the best division in the country. And in the end, what you guys do as a commission, what you've done over the last 4 years, assist us in that goal. So I just want to thank you. It's not easy volunteering as much time as you guys have done and being in the fight to make things better here in this city, not just for our police agency, but for the city as a whole. So I want to thank you guys personally for the work that you've done over the last 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the city? All right. We're going to move on to community comment period for a chance for you all to share your thoughts about your experiences with the commission or any other comments you'd like them to hear before the term ends in the next, in fact, this will be our last meeting. Just kind of dawned on me. We have 2 microphones that will be passed around. If you could just raise your hands, we'll get to each and every person. We have plenty of time left on the agenda, but I ask that you still try to keep it brief for the courteousness to other people. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to say thank you all for working diligently to do the work that needed in this community. I appreciate the commission, and I want you guys to stay around for a long time. And I want you guys to help us, the community, have a community oversight. I think it's well needed. I want to thank the city of Cleveland and all the officials here just allowing me to be in this space and be a part of this due to the tragedy of my child. I know all but police officers are not bad. I have a past before Tamir, and I'm gonna share this with you all. I have a past before Tamir, and when I was younger, coming from a broken home, I got in trouble a lot with the police officers, and I can say I never experienced police brutality, never. So I just wanted to share that with you all, and I'm here to work together. It's going on 5 years for Tamir, and I just want to see a change in the city of Cleveland. I think that the state of Ohio can be an example for other states across this country, and I'm hoping that we could be that example. I'm going to be meeting with Judge Oliver soon, and the monitoring team. I want to say thank you to Miss Latoya and Mario and Sergeant Jackson and Chris and all of you guys. I don't know everybody else's name, but all of you guys, thank you. Lee Fisher, Mr. Knopf. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your other name, but I just want to say thank you. City Council, Matt Zone, President Kelly, if you're still here, thank you. To the Law Department for working diligently as well. Thank you to Chief Calvin Williams. Thank you for always being positive when you see me. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jason, and to our community leaders and my cousin Latanya Goldsby here, Miss Alicia Kirkman, another mom that has suffered the same tragedy, Brenda Bickerstaff. They always make sure that I'm included. My life has been very busy. I stay busy through the grace of God, and I'm always building. I just want to thank everybody. Thank you.
Well, at first we bumped heads, and you know that, because I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was going to be a bunch of you-know-what, but I stuck with it. Even Jeff Farmer and I kind of get along a little bit. We beat each other up from time to time, but we get along a little bit now. It's getting there. It's not all the way there, but it's getting there. And I just want to thank the commission. I want to thank Sergeant Jackson for coming down to City Council with us. But I'm going to tell you, I have a picture of my brother Craig. He was a graduate from Lincoln West. He played football. Craig wasn't perfect, but he didn't deserve 5 bullets in his back. And I'm glad that the Carl Stokes Brigade, Surge, the Women's League voters, and everybody that's here that support what we're doing here. And I'm going to tell you, I promised, and I hate that I met both of you ladies the way that we did, but I'm glad I met you. Both of them lost sons. And that just puts a drive in me. There's 86 other families out here, and I want to say this on TV. There are 86 other families out here, and we need you, who lost their loved ones by the hands of the police. We need you. We need you. We want you to be included in this change because it's coming. It's important for the commission to be here even after the consent decree is gone. We have to get it implemented in the charter. It has to be implemented in the charter unless, because if we don't, another travesty would occur. And I'm going to tell you what happens when someone is killed by the police. It's called PTSD. It causes a financial deficit to the family. It causes an economical deficit. Come in my neighborhood where I live at. It's maybe about 6 houses on Garfield now. The houses are dilapidated because people can't afford them anymore. They can't even go to the city, a lot of older people, and get money to fix their houses. And a lot of these people who lost their houses and their homes, family members was killed by the police. And I'm telling you, I don't hate the police. My dad was one. My sister's a deputy chief in Pittsburgh. Sergeant Jackson just met her. My cousin is on the force, okay? I'm not a police hater, but I just want them to do better. As a private investigator, when I investigate cases for the lawyers, they want me to do better. They want me to be professional. And if they have to come at me and I'm doing the wrong thing, I don't slip down and say I quit. I do better. I get more training. I do things that I'm supposed to do so I can be the best private investigator somebody would hire. That's what you do as a police officer. It's not going to always be glorified every day. Yeah, sometimes people may go off on you, but you know what you got to do? You got to buckle it up and shake it off and keep it going. Don't take that out on everybody, because we need you too. You're a part of our community just like I am. And my brother was too. My brother had 2 children. There's 2 kids. His 2 daughters graduated from high school, but their dad wasn't there. But you know what? I'm going to keep fighting. God is going to keep putting it in me. I'm not going to give it up. Alicia, we're going to keep fighting for your son, Angelo Miller, and we're going to keep fighting for Tamir Rice, and we're going to keep fighting for every family that died in the state of Ohio, in the city of Cleveland.
My name is Alicia Kirkman. My son was murdered 12 years ago by a police officer. I've been fighting for 12 years. And to see this, you know, I wish they could have stopped it 12 years ago. If they would have stopped it 12 years ago when the consent decree was here before, it wouldn't have happened to Tamir. It wouldn't have happened to others. So I feel a change is coming. But one thing we can't do, we can't forget about the 86 other families. It's 86 other families that has suffered. And I feel a change is coming. We're not going to stop. I feel that it needs to stay. I feel it don't need to go anywhere. So I would like to thank you all, and I do thank you all. You know, I might not have a smile on my face all the time, but I'm a mother that's hurting. And to sit here and see history, you know, see that another mother would not have to endure what we have to endure. You know, we could say, hey, it worked. You know, 86 families, and it's only 4 families. But we gonna see a change. We gonna see, and thank you once again.
Thank you. Dave Lima, and on behalf of the Northeast Ohio chapter of SURGE, Showing Up for Racial Justice, I have a comment. The Cleveland Community Police Commission provides an essential avenue for the voices of the citizens of Cleveland to be heard. It is an important component in the reform process and the police oversight system. However, in order to be effective, it must have independence, authority, and funding. If any of these components are missing, the effectiveness of the commission would be severely compromised. Continuation of the commission post-consent decree with the independence, authority, and funding mentioned above will be critical to holding the Cleveland Department of Police accountable for the changes sought in the reform process. Thank you.
Hi, is it on? Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Rosie Palfy, and I'm a member of the Mental Health Response Advisory Committee that was created under the consent decree. First of all, I would like to thank all the members of the commission for their tireless efforts, as well as the commission staff. Anytime I call Jason or anybody else, they answer all my questions. I see how much work we do on the Mental Health Response Advisory Committee, and we're just focused on crisis intervention. So when you look at all the different areas you guys have worked on, it's extremely impressive. I think this is a very important venue for people to learn about what's going on and make suggestions. Excuse me. The other thing is, I'd like to remind people how we got here. We got here because of the 2012 police chase when Melissa Williams and Timothy Russell were killed. Both of them had previous interactions with the justice system. They were both homeless. They both have mental illnesses, and they both had substance abuse issues. And so I really think there needs to be more focus on that. I'm grateful to the members of the Department of Justice and the members of the monitoring team that work really hard on our committee. But I would really like to see more involvement from the city. I know the city's involved behind the scenes, but we actually need you there at the table, and we need union reps there. If you guys can't come to the meetings, at least get on our email list so you can see what's going on and give input. Also, I've seen very little attention paid to homelessness, and today the Washington Post came out with a story. I'm not trying to get into anything political, but the headline is, as Trump prepares big push on homelessness, White House floats new role for police. So I just want people to keep that in mind, that there may be a new role for police in the city. I would like to see the city do what a lot of other major municipalities do. They have what they call hot teams, homeless outreach teams. And I know that the police department does a lot of homeless outreach, but if they could actually get it organized and have a team, that would be great. And also, the MRAC does not have a budget, and it has really put a strain on us. We don't have any employees working on it. The Adams Board is doing the bulk of the work, and they already have a full-time job. So I would like City Council, I would like City to look at possibly, changing that in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Lynn Carloni. I really didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I feel the need. My son was not killed by police officers, but he was killed by crime in our city. And my big push has been to make our city safer. I'm really pleased to hear about all the developments that are happening, and I urge and encourage this to continue, please. On behalf of all of the countless and unknown families in our city who have lost children and adults and loved ones to crime in our city, I appeal to you, please, to continue to beef up our homicide department with well-equipped officers and technology. Please make our city safer. My heart bleeds for all the loss that we occur on a regular basis to crime in our city. So thank you all for what you have done.
I wasn't going to say anything this evening because how can you follow when you're talking about the loss of a child? That's quite difficult. But my name is Marva Patterson. I'm a Christian community activist, a member of the Carl Stokes Brigade and other organizations. Sitting here, you kind of figure, how do we fix this? Love, that's the ultimate way. Treating each other how you would want to be treated. I grew up understanding that, understanding what family is. You're my family. They're my family. And if we treat each other like that, it will be a much better world. And I just want to say I love you all, and I'm so sorry for your loss. I hurt for you as well. But we have to do that. We have to hurt for the police out there when they lose their loved ones. And I just want to say real quickly, because I remember this one story. There was an African-American woman that jumped out of her car and onto the back of an individual that was abusing a police officer. This gentleman had actually stolen an officer's gun. I will never forget this story. I can't remember her name. But just think about if she chose to be racist or complacent or angry, that officer would never have gotten home to his loved ones. He thanked her. This was a Caucasian officer. So it's about love and the commitment one to the other. So I just implore everyone and the commission, and I want to thank you all because I know it's hard work, but it's about love. And you must be mindful of that, because as a person of faith, I understand when I leave here, I want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. So I just encourage all of you, look to your hearts and understand, as officers out there too, he's important, but our community and our children are just as important. Thank you.
Hi, hi, I'm Patricia Carter, and I'm a representative of the League of Women Voters, but I'm speaking for myself right now. I'd like to see the commission continue working towards the goal that the consent decree basically had set forth for the city of Cleveland. I've lost a couple of family members to Cleveland police within my lifetime. So that's one reason why I've tried to attend every meeting that I can possibly attend. And if there's anything that I can do to help the families that have lost members of their family, I would gladly help. Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for coming out and sharing this time with each other and with the commission. It means a lot to have so many people spend this much time of their lives knowing how many people in this room have so many commitments that they could have chosen this evening, and they chose to be here. So it was wonderful. And I look forward to seeing many of these faces again, including commissioners, to come back and engage with the new commission that will be appointed in October. Thank you all again. I'd like to invite you to stick around, get to know each other a little more, have a little conversation, and enjoy some desserts and refreshments before you leave. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.